When it rains, it pours. Twins get smoked by Atlanta after a long rain delay. We're breaking it all down next on the Locked On Twins postcast.
You are Locked On Twins postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up? What's up? Back in the lab, back at it. Another Minnesota Twins postcast episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. Your team every day. You got myself, Luke Inman, at Luke_Spinman. That's the man riding shotgun, CJ Baumgartner. He's on X. Give him a follow at BaumCJ30. Twins expert over at Zone Coverage MN. And before we jump into all the action from tonight, quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB. Use code, this is all lowercase, LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Okay, so game one, first Atlanta, game 4 of 9, by the way, all in a row at home in the backyard, Target Field. Time to hopefully shake off some demons from last night's debacle. Really, the whole week has been a debacle. Got Mr. Reliable on the mound, Bailey Ober. This one was like the exact opposite of what you needed to see if you're a Twins fan. 9-1 was the score after 2 innings. Bailey, 2 innings, 7 hits, 9 earned runs. It just got smoked tonight. Maybe that's putting it lightly, even, to be honest. Long rain delay in the second. Went for about an hour plus. Made us all just kind of sulk in the pain of that 9-1 score. They pulled the tarps about 9 o'clock, 9 p.m. Central Standard, but it really didn't matter. I mean, Twins chipped away little by little. It kind of always felt, though, little too late. Kind of, that was the vibe it felt like anyways, no matter what they did. I know Wallner had a solo shot, his 10th of the year. Kyle Farmer had a solo shot, his 2nd of the year. Let's see, Margot was 3 for 4 with an RBI, but not enough really to erase that 8-run deficit. Final score 10-6. And unfortunately, just another kind of kick in the nuts type of game. I mean, that was the vibe. That's how it feels, albeit not as dramatic and maybe gut-wrenching as last night's loss. Start with your biggest takeaways, though. Maybe your 8 topics from this one. Then we'll dive into Bailey Ober's night a little bit more as well.
Yeah, my biggest thing was this was a big series. You lost like you talked about, big homestand. You lost the series against St. Louis.
Yeah.
Not ideal, but you have Atlanta. They're scuffling. They're injured. They're not, they're like the Twins are. They're trying to hang on despite losing some pieces. And you just right away in the first inning, I mean, Bailey Ober gives up a couple hits. And then obviously he gives up the RBI single and then the 3-run home run by Olsen that pretty much just, I'll be honest, from that moment, I was like, well, they lost today. Like that, sometimes you just know.
Yeah.
And it's over. Like, that's just not a great sign. When you get down 4-0 to a team like Atlanta early, not that it's impossible, but that win probability just shoots up for Atlanta. And then Ober tried to wear it, got through the rain delay, but gave up 9 runs. And again, post rain delay, the Twins, outscored them. They ended up scoring 6 runs total. Atlanta only got 1 after that. It doesn't really matter. It's a blowout at that point. But yeah, you needed to win that start with Bailey Ober because now you have Simeon Woods Richardson and you kick it down the line with the younger guys. But it felt like Bailey Ober, I know Max Fried was on the other side, but the Twins felt like they rain delay making it weird, but it still felt like they hit him pretty well, or at least well enough. It's just one of those where it's like that really felt like a game that you had a chance to win because Bailey Ober is your best starter at this point, and you didn't. And now that means you need to rely on 2 young pitchers against an experienced lineup in Atlanta to try and salvage this series.
Yeah, well said. Good breakdown. And it's the snowball effect too, right? Like 3 totally winnable games. We talked about this last night, obviously. Knee-jerk reaction. The Ed Julian error last night. Okert implosion. Alcala implosion. You get blown out the very next night tonight versus Atlanta. Fans on Twitter are exploding, right? Even in the chat right now, they had a 9-game homestand to kind of pick themselves back up. And so far, they've gone 1-3. Kansas City's leapfrogged them in the division standings. Where's the panic meter at then? Can you talk some of us off the ledge, I guess? Like, are things actually as bad as it feels and seems right now? Because the vibe around town is this thing got ugly pretty quick.
Well, and the comments kind of pointed to this too. And if you're talking about the division, yeah, there's a little bit of it's not a total freak out, but there is a little bit of a panic because Kansas City is playing really, really well right now. And
Yeah.
I believe they swept the doubleheader today against the Cleveland Guardians. So, I mean, like they're picking their way back up. On the other hand, it's still August 26th. There's still, the regular season ends, I believe, on September 29th, September
Yes.
30th, somewhere around there. So you're not even a full calendar month quite yet to the end of the season. So, and it's just as we've seen before, a 3-game division lead can fluctuate within a week very, very quickly. So this isn't to say the Twins are done, but yeah, it's not looking great right now in terms of trying to catch the division and the fact that Kansas City passed you for the second wild card. That being said, there are 3 wild card spots in the American League, and they're like 5.5 games up on the Red Sox. Again, there's a lot of time. I'm not saying anything's definitive, but they're sitting in a great spot to still make the playoffs regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're trying to catch the division and the division gets you a first-round bye this year, yeah, I mean, that's important, and it feels like it's kind of slipping, at least where it was, after even that implosion last Sunday in Texas, where it's like you're still 2 games out of the division within striking distance. It feels like you just stumble enough to let them kind of get that cushion back again.
I want to talk about the division stuff a little bit more in segment 2, but let's just dive into Bailey Ober's night just a little bit more. You kind of already touched on it, but 2 innings, 7 hits, 9 earned, 2 walks, 2 Ks, 55 pitches. At least he saved his arm a little bit, trying to find the positive here. It's tough when I'm just thinking about Bailey Ober, big picture, right? It's tough when you started the season as the number 3 guy, really. I mean, Joe Ryan was supposed to be the number 2 guy. And as things have transpired, I guess, you've been forced into this almost 1-in-1A role with Pablo. That's kind of the vibe. That's kind of how it feels now. And all of a sudden, you just wake up one day and there's all this pressure on you to go out there, put the team on your back, and get them a win no matter what. Oh, Bailey Ober's starting, got to get a win. Like, that's the bar now. Like, that's almost unfair circumstances and kind of his reality now for him. And to be honest, I mean, to be fair, to his credit, for the most part, he's actually risen to the occasion, gone out there and been that guy, despite how far we've raised that bar, almost to unfair circumstances. But unfortunately, when you get a night like this, it just seems to sting so much more worse than it would have maybe at the beginning of the year, because they do have so much to rely on him now, and especially now more than ever, because you're hoping, okay, he's going to be the guy to help them snap them out of this funk that they're in the last week or so too.
Yeah, I mean, that's the old cliche with your top pitchers, they're stoppers, and whatever skid you're on, whatever funk you're in, like they're just gonna have a great night and stop it. And Pablo Lopez did that for the Twins on Saturday, and you needed Bailey Ober a couple days later to be the stopper again, and he just couldn't do it. And you're right, it is a lot of pressure for him, and this is the first time in his career. He's pitched well before, but this is the first time where he's been pitching. I mean, this is his best season, obviously, and for him to be relied on now, yeah, that's not exactly what they were expecting, and it's not on Bailey Ober. I mean, he can only do the situation he has. It's not his fault that he has to. I mean, it's kind of like Joe Ryan a couple of years ago in his first full big league season. It was him and Sonny Gray, and like if they didn't have a quality start, like they were going to lose every game up until they got back around in the rotation. And it kind of feels like that in a way with Ober and Lopez, just because, those other guys just don't pitch as deep, and they're rookies and they're very volatile, good or bad. But yeah, I mean, Bailey Ober has pitched very well this season. And it's just one of those where it's like you talked about, there's just so much pressure on him needing to go, and he's had a quality start for like 8 starts in a row. So that was just the expectation in our minds. Like, oh, he's just going to go do it again. And some like good pitchers do this all the time. Like, I know it's in the middle of a funk and it feels like everything's falling, but there are good pitchers all the time, Cy Young caliber pitchers, that get blown up in starts and have things go weird. It was a weird night. It was a gross night at Target Field. It was sticky. It was humid. That ball was going to carry. And that pitch that Ober gave up the home run on to Olsen in the first inning, an 0-2 cutter that you just leave middle at the letters, and that's going to get taken out by a guy that hit 50 home runs last year 10 times out of 10. It's just little slip ups in those situations that compound, and there's just so much pressure right now on Bailey Ober that that stuff is normal in the game of baseball, but it just feels like it can't happen.
Yeah, well said there. Rocco report time. Game 1 versus Atlanta. The Rocco report. It says what?
I mean, it's kind of inconclusive a little bit because like when you have a starter just get shelled, like there's not, I mean, you have to try and
Rock in a
save.
hard place. What do you want me to do? Yeah.
Right, exactly. I mean, and Scott Blewett came in, pitched a few good innings. Trevor Richards, a little funky again with the changeups bouncing everywhere, but he had a couple good innings. Ronnie Henriquez, you saved, having to use some highly important guys in your bullpen like Jax, Duran, Alcala. But at the same time, everybody in this bullpen is an important piece just with how many innings and how worn and how relied upon this not good unit needs to be for this team. But overall, to get through the night only using 4 pitchers in a blowout, I think is pretty good. And it just sets them up for tomorrow now. Hopefully they're in a spot to win the game. And you have guys like Jackson Duran that are ready to go with a night off.
No, that's true. It's actually a really good point because, again, not just tomorrow night, but just, again, during these last 5 games of this homestand, you want these guys as fresh as possible. Everybody, it feels like, still needs another night off here sooner than later, and certainly back in the bullpen, more important than ever. Plenty more deep dive from this one. Plus, we got our nerdy stat of the day. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience, the formula for winning championships. Also what keeps your ride or die alive. In eBay Motors, they got everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to the ultimate peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, they got it all. And whether you're into speed, power, or style, they got you covered. 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back with all the parts you need at the prices you want. Easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Some quick injury updates. Buxton, Kepler, Brooks Lee, Correa, any of these guys. What's the latest? I know Rocco talked about some of these guys in his pregame presser. What's the latest?
I mean, the big news has been Brooks Lee. He had his rehab games recently and got a couple hits, has looked good, and is, on a nice track, which would be huge for this team just to get Brooks Lee back. I mean, presumably he'd be playing shortstop, which means that you can kind of let Willie Castro go to second base. It's not a great look for Julian, but I mean, overall in the Twins infield defense after Julian's play yesterday, he's had a good season defensively, but Willie Castro moving back over there to second will help that unit, or it allows Willie Castro to play that corner outfield spot as well. So it just to let the Twins be a little more flexible. And Brooks Lee, before he hurt his shoulder, was really hitting well. I mean, he's a pro's pro, despite being like 24 years old. So that guy, when he's healthy, will be a good hitter, which will help this team out as well. Same old kind of for the Buxton and Correa stuff, which just kind of believe it when you see it at this point, and just kind of
your tone said it all, man. Your tone said same old. I mean, you got a little quieter, the tone said it all. Not much new to report on the big names, Buxton and Correa. Unfortunately, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Short and sweet. Yeah, pretty much. Let's try to lift the mood here just for a second, if we can. The vibes with the Minnesota Twins are obviously not great. I asked Lou this the other night, but what's been one thing, I guess, you've been most impressed with about when it does come to, the 2024 Minnesota Twins season, just as a whole kind of big picture? For me, and I said this the other night, if you were to tell me how many games Royce Lewis, Buxton, Correa wouldn't play, the fact that Joe Ryan wouldn't pitch the final 2 months, you tell me all that, plus plenty more I'm leaving out, by the way. I probably would tell you this is a sub 500 baseball team. Like, how could they be anything but a sub 500 baseball team without those 3 key guys? Like, who's winning them baseball games at that point? Where's the talent coming from, so to speak? So to be hovering around, 13, 14, 15 games above 500, like they've been consistently now for a while, I guess the resiliency, the adaptability, they've been so flexible, finding ways to make it work and just come away with series wins after series. Not a lot of sweeps ever, but just winning 2 out of 3, chipping away for most of the season. That's been kind of the recipe for success. That's got to be the most impressive thing for me, because Just to be honest, I just didn't really see that coming. I just really didn't. I assumed if they didn't have their big three out there for a healthy chunk of the season, if not the large majority of it, plus strong starting pitching, they'd be a 500 team at best. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly. Their resiliency has been big because remember it's been talked about a lot. They started out 7-13 and
That's right.
up, and then they had I think one of the best records in baseball since that
Yep.
point. Now I'm sure it looks a little different after these last couple weeks, but still, and it's not just the fact that they rattled off 14 some wins. It's like you talked about. Then they followed that up by just winning series after series
Mhm.
after series and constantly chipping away. And that does come from, I think, just a total team effort. When you look at guys like Willie Castro having an all-star type season, Christian Vasquez all of a sudden turning around his bat. But
Mhm.
before Vasquez did that, Ryan Jeffers was like one of the best
Mhm.
hitters in baseball for the first month and a half of the season. It's just a lot of different guys coming up and making a play. But I think also, if you want to look on the pitching staff side of things, even though Pablo Lopez was weird this season, and especially for the first half, I know he's starting to piece it together, but it was very up and down for him. And it felt like he just couldn't quite find his footing. Still, Simeon Woods Richardson, Bailey Ober, and you've gotten a couple good starts out of David Festa, at least one good start out of Zebby Matthews. Like, just the fact that they've been able to piece this rotation together with young pitchers, because that's also the other thing. Twins tried to piece together a rotation in 2022, and a lot of these similar circumstances happening around them, the bullpen not doing well, the lineup getting hurt, and that 2022 team fell apart. They were able to kind of, the rookies have been the glue guys, so to speak, the rookie pitchers, which has been fascinating to see. And of course, Bailey Ober just having his, I know tonight withstanding, having just a career season. All of that's kind of like you talked about. It's just, there is not one person that's driven this team. They've been solid. And it's hard to look at that right now in the last week, but we talked about it a few weeks ago. This is going to be their toughest stretch of the season, and they're in the middle of it. And they had a lot of games and a lot of days, and they just had an off day last week for the first time in a long time. So it doesn't excuse where they're at right now, but it is to say that we need to acknowledge they're in the middle of a tough stretch, which means that a lighter stretch hopefully is somewhere down the horizon.
On that note, if they don't win the division, if they got to go on the road in the first round, that's not the end of the world, right? But I think about not just in baseball, all sports. I cover football, the NFL quite a bit as well for the past decade plus. I mean, you see teams sneak in as that sixth seed, right? The wild card, and just go on a run. It's all about getting hot at the end. So I guess my question is, every team's unique and different and has their own little thumbprint, so to speak. How do the Twins get hot at the end? Like, just knowing how their roster looks as is it just a matter of getting everybody healthy, or is there a little bit more to it?
Well, I think, typically it's the team that hits in the postseason is the team that goes very far. I mean, you look at the Arizona Diamondbacks last year, they were one of the final wild card teams, and so were the Texas Rangers. And both those teams were not even, the Texas Rangers blew a division lead multiple games in the final week of the season. Everybody thought they were crumbling. So, and then they go on and win the World Series. They beat Tampa Bay. They beat the top seed of Baltimore. They beat the Houston Astros, who are the defending champions.
Mm-hmm.
And then they cakewalk around the Diamondbacks, who, by the way, they had to go through the Dodgers. They had to go through the Phillies. And you do it by hitting typically in the postseason. You do need those good pitching performances, but you need hitting. And Buxton could theoretically be back for the postseason. Correa has to be just saving his bullets for a September stretch run.
You gotta
got to be my line of thinking. You get him back, and obviously you're going to get Brooks Lee back. And I mean, the lineup has been inconsistent, of course, but they do have the potential to get hot. And that's really all it is just getting hot at the right time. Baseball's playoffs just have the opportunity for a team to go on a run like this. Again, Diamondbacks versus Rangers was your World Series last year, and nobody saw that coming. All you need is just a ticket in, and you see what happens. And that's really all it is. And honestly, the second wildcard spot that Kansas City has right now, they're going to have to go on the road to the AL East runner-up, which means you're either going to Yankee Stadium or Camden Yards.
Right.
Those aren't exactly places you want to go. Now, on the other hand, the Twins will be going to Houston. And as we've learned, chanting "We want Houston" doesn't always end well for the other team that wants Houston. You're going to have to play well no matter what team, because it's the playoffs. But the Astros have felt a little more mortal this year, and at least seem better than, going into Yankee Stadium for a best 2 out of 3 series, right?
No, absolutely. Chip in a chair, man. Chip in a chair, you got a chance. Everybody knows it. Everybody who's watched sports throughout their life knows it. No team I don't care what seed it is. No team wants to play the team that got hot at the end and is really playing with house money at that point and has got nothing to lose, right? All the pressure's on the number 1 seed or 2 seed, and nobody's given this 6 seed a chance, so to speak, just flinging out some examples. But absolutely. But obviously the Twins have to get to that point first, and they do have to get hot and start rattling out some more wins. Nerdy stat of the daytime. You got some sort of crazy stat or fun analytic Twins related?
Well, I was thinking about Bailey Ober, and of course, Bailey Ober gives up a lot of home runs. Bailey Ober's been a guy who kind of, again, his worst starts of the season have been blow-up innings, and I was wondering kind of, where that happened in the first inning. And if you look, his splits by inning coming into today's game, Bailey Ober's highest is in the 6th inning, where he has an ERA of 6, and that's likely going to go up. It will go up with the performance he had today in the first inning. He's a guy that, it has a tendency to, if a team can jump on him early and he can't quite locate some of those pitches, that you can get to him. And that's where it's been. I mean, the second highest has been like the 7th inning, which you'd figure getting that late in the game, but it's that first inning where teams can really have a chance to get off Bailey Ober. And the Braves had a good game plan coming into today's game, and they took advantage.
Yeah, really interesting. I mean, now that you say it, I look back and I think back to a lot of Bailey Ober starts. You're kind of right. Like, he's been prone and susceptible, giving up some early damage right away. I guess I just never put 2 and 2 together. So, as always, very good nerdy stat per usual. Don't go anywhere. Going to preview these last 5 home games. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode also brought to us by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members to date. And for me and my money, it's just by far the easiest. It's the most exciting way to get in on all the action while you watch your favorite sports and you watch your favorite players. So simple. All you got to do, you pick more or you pick less on 2 or more players' stats, and you watch the winnings roll in. Baseball season, obviously, still in full swing here. So whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, home runs, you name it, they got it. Take your pick on more or less and add them to your Prize Picks entry today. Plus, they now offer Apple Pay, quick and easy deposits into your account all season long. Download the Prize Picks app. Use code, all lowercase, Locked On MLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Okay, 5 more in a row at home in the backyard, Target Field. 2 with Atlanta, obviously. 3 with the Blue Jays next. Tell me what needs to happen in these next 5 games here. If you're the Minnesota Twins, just to stay afloat, kind of exercise some demons, snap out of this funk. Or is this whole division title just really going to come down to those 4 games with Cleveland here in a few weeks?
Well, it's going to come down to those 4 games with Cleveland, but also the Twins are going on the road to Kansas City the first week of September. Right. So those are 2 big series on the road that you're going to have to go and play well against. And if the Twins win 2 out of 3 or even sweep against, let's say, Kansas City, or win 3 out of 4, or even split with Cleveland, like, there is a chance that they can keep themselves within striking distance, because the Guardians have not been playing well over the last couple months. Kansas City is catching fire, but does there have some fall from grace happen? If you play well against them head to head, like the Twins have all season long, they have a really good chance. It's going to come down to that, but also what it's going to take to have that happen. I mean, let's be honest, this team is going to have to hit. And it's not just because, generally speaking, you got to score runs to win. It's more of your starting rotation has 3 really young pitchers in Woods, Richardson, Festa, and Matthews. You're going to need to score runs to take pressure off of them. And not only that, you're going to need runs because you just can't win games 3-4. You can't win games 2-1. It's not going to happen. As we've seen over the last week, they've blown 3 games where they've had leads like that late that they can't hang on. And you're going to need to have like that series finale against San Diego. You're going to need to have a game where you just have to outscore some teams. And not that they're incapable of doing that, but like we've talked about, when you don't have Buxton, when you don't have Correa, when you're waiting on Brooks Lee to come back and you're playing a little bit out the stretch, it's tougher to do that. That being said, there's still some guys that can, Miranda, there's still Wallner, there's still a few. Vasquez has been hitting really well as of late. There's still guys in here that can hit. They're going to need to do it to make up for the fact that their bullpen is just a mess right now.
What's Cleveland's record like the last 30 games or so? Because I know they've came back down to earth, like you said, at least a little bit the last few weeks or so. I know they're 3-7 in their last 10, but part two of this, what I'm really getting at, being on the outside looking in like myself, not a Guardians fanatic, obviously. What's been their Achilles heel, or like the thing that's caused them to struggle so much like they have all of a sudden? And I guess, is it sustainable? Can they keep it up? Because that would help a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think basically if you're somebody who kind of follows the numbers, you would say that Cleveland had we talked about the big thing about Cleveland was, whoa, they're hitting. And that was the thing that they couldn't do a year ago.
Right.
And they're better, obviously, than they are a year ago, and they've hit better. But if you look at the underlying numbers, some of it's they're just playing over their heads for a little bit, or they were playing out of their minds. And that means that a natural regression is coming back to their mean. And that's just starting to escape them a little bit. And I think it's just overall, the Cleveland's projected record was not this, and nobody in the division's projected record is what it's at right now. But I think it's just a little bit of that. You were projected to finish that way for a reason. They're going to finish better than what it was, but you're coming back down to earth and you're just kind of tailing off. They had such a great first couple months of the season that it really put them in the driver's seat. And they've just slowly, like we talked about the Twins, slowly building themselves up throughout the season. Cleveland was the opposite, where they start off so hot and they've just slowly been chipping away at themselves all season long.
How big did that division lead get?
It was like 9 games a couple months
ago. Yeah, it felt
ago.
almost double digits. I couldn't remember if it got to double digits.
It felt like Cleveland could run away and hide with it, and they were not able to.
Yeah. Speaking of Twins hitting, maybe we get Rocco in there. Rocco, what, a career average hitting batting 333? That's not true, is it? Did he really have a career average of 333? No way.
I don't think so, but I mean, it's tough because
he was good, though. He was that good.
He was a nice player. He was a very touted. I believe he was in the same draft as Joe Mauer. He was like a pick or two behind or something like that.
A pick or two. So he was like top 5?
Yeah, he was like a really good.
Oh, that's right.
He was a really good athlete, but he had,
yeah.
I can't remember what specifically, but he had to basically medically retire in 2010.
He flirted with like rookie of the year that year, didn't he?
I can't remember for sure, because I think he came out around the same time as Mauer, like 04, 05.
Third in the voting. 2003 AL rookie, third in the voting. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Hideki Matsui, the winner there. Okay.
Of course. Yeah.
Of course. All right. Anything else going on around the league that's, just kind of tuned into the back of your mind? Some maybe non-Twins news. Maybe it's an injury or a guy coming back, a storyline, a division race, a player to watch, anything like that. I saw Michael Harris for the Braves. He got hit by a pitch or something, and then he just came back tonight. Was that the story there?
Yeah, he came back tonight and he made a really nice catch, and I believe it was the 7th inning.
Yeah.
I can't remember who. I think Miranda hit it, scalded it to center, and he made a nice, like you could see the ball start to snow cone out of his glove, squeezed it, he tracked it down, leapt up, caught it. Really, that guy's a great, really energetic center fielder to watch. It's really fun. But yeah, and the other thing is Seattle. They just fired their manager of 9 years in Scott Service, and they're a team that I think somebody said Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez have been married more times than the Mariners have made the playoffs in the last 20 years. And I feel so bad for Seattle fans because, man, they don't deserve that. That franchise has had some really nice players over the last 2 decades, and they've just been unable to put together outside of one season anything really competitive.
You should have saved that for a nerdy stat, because that would have been a phenomenal nerdy stat right there. We better get out of here. Twins get smoked in game 1 versus Atlanta. Cleveland's division lead sitting at 2.5 games. Game 2 now, Woods Richardson on the mound. First pitch tomorrow night, 6:40 p.m. Huge shout out to all the everydayers out there that always make us your first listen. Rest assured, we'll be back each and every game right here, breaking it all down. Got to go check out all of CJ's work on Twitter at BombCJ30, plus all the work he's always ripping up over at ZoneCoverageMN.com. Anything new? Haven't asked you in a while. Anything new as of late we can go check out? You've been working on Twins related over there.
Yeah, I had something come out over the weekend for Sonny Gray's return to Target Field, and basically just talking about what the Twins got right with letting Sonny Gray go, and where the Twins got wrong, and just kind of the logic you had to tell yourself. The Twins thought that they could recreate him in the aggregate with some of these pitchers and Varland and Paddock, and that hasn't quite worked out. And the Twins obviously badly need a veteran in Sonny Gray, so that fell on their face. But also the other thing is Sonny Gray, as the Twins saw, has not pitched well over the last month and has been pretty unreliable for them. And the Cardinals are on the hook for $25 million a year
Ooh.
for the next couple of years. He signed a
Whoa.
3-year, $75 million deal. That's more than Pablo Lopez is going to make next season when his extension kicks in for the Twins. And that pays him through like his age 37, 38 season. So
Whoa.
that's kind of where the Twins were. I explained it all and break it a little more down in detail, but essentially what the Twins got right, what the Twins got wrong with letting Sonny Gray walk out the door.
Yeah, that's awesome. Can't wait to go check that out. Again, that's up over at zonecoveragemn.com. Like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. So close to 8,000 subscribers. That's always much, much appreciated. CJ Baumgartner, Luke Inman on X at Luke_Spinman. We'll see you next time. But until then, signing out.